We have Brandon Tatum on the show today. Officer Tatum is a former Tucson police officer. He's now a media influencer with his own podcast, The Officer Tatum Show, with over 3 million subscribers on YouTube. And he's the co-founder of Blexit with Candace Owens. I bet you've probably seen his videos when you're scrolling your Instagram feed late at night. Brandon inspires so many people, including many of our students here at Students for Life of America. So I'm so excited to finally have him on the show. Brandon, thanks for joining today.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I look forward to having a conversation with you. I watch all your stuff on social media, and I love it. I love your stance, and it's not easy. I can see these people are crazy, but you're doing the right thing, and I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, the feeling is mutual because I'm watching your content daily, and the clips that you find on social media, on TikTok, that are out there, and the truth that you spread. I'm so grateful for what you're doing and the audience, the massive audience that you're reaching every day. So let's just start with a simple question for our discussion, get the ball rolling. What is your view or stance on abortion, and why do you feel that way?
Well, I think abortion is wrong. It's not only wrong according to the Bible, which in the Bible is considered murder, but it's actually morally wrong, even if you're not a Christian or you don't
That's right.
subscribe to biblical, context. You're literally eliminating the life of an innocent person that didn't have an opportunity to make a decision, right? It's very different than if somebody's on death row and they get put to death. They were an adult making a conscious decision to violate a law. But for a baby, an unborn child didn't have a decision whatsoever. So I not only think it's against the Bible, it's against morality as an adult, and I think it's incredibly selfish. I take a very strong stance when it comes to standing against abortion. I think that abortion should not be legal in any sense, not even for rape and incest. The life of the mother, in my opinion, is not an abortion. That's literally a medical
That's right.
procedure. So if somebody's going to die, you have to make a decision. That's a very different thing as well. So, I take a very strong stance as a father, as a son. And all of those things contribute to my, thought process when it comes to abortions.
Yeah, and you've definitely taken, I've seen in the clips over the years, you taking this stance. I guess one of the questions I have is, how does that affect you within the broader conservative movement? Because you're well known within just the Republican conservative movement. I know, for a while you were at Turning Point, and I've just seen you as speaking at other large scale events. But not everybody in the Republican conservative movement is pro-life. And do you take heat for your position on abortion?
Well, some people may have a problem with it. I don't care. They can take that up with the Lord or whatever problems they have within themselves. I do have compassion for women, though. I really do. I'm not
Mhm.
stupid. I mean, I wasn't born yesterday. I do understand that people somehow or in some cases are misinformed. They don't have all the accurate information. They get coerced into doing it.
That's
Sometimes
right.
men try to force women to do it. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of women that end up getting to that point, they just weren't educated on it. They didn't have the support that they needed. I feel like if we can, come together and to provide that support, I think we'll see a big difference, more so than what the law could ever do. Especially overturning Roe v. Wade. I am an advocate of the law, by the way. I'm just saying that I think that we can personally touch the lives of people and make an incredible difference that way. But some people
Mm,
do have a problem with me, but I think it's not conservative at all to be pro-choice. And let me not say
that's right.
pro-choice. Let's say pro-murder, pro-abortion,
Mhm.
because you do have a choice. You had a choice
Yeah.
when you were having unprotected or whatever kind of sexual engagement you were having. That was a choice that you made. The choice doesn't occur at the clinic. It occurs in your lifestyle before you conceive the child.
That's right.
So I don't like to call it pro-choice. I think these people are pro-murder or pro-selfishness, and I don't think you can say you're conservative. I don't think that's conservative values or Christian values to be pro-murder.
Absolutely. It's been something that I've been struggling with just to see since Roe has been reversed. A lot of these, formerly very outspoken pro-life politicians have now since started to backtrack. And because they're being politicians, they're not being leaders. The polls are saying this, and so I'm changing my view on abortion. But either it's right for everyone or it's wrong for everyone. It doesn't change. A child's value in the womb doesn't change depending on the whims and desires or the thoughts of the mother. And it's unbelievable how many kind of cases of backsliding we've seen recently with some of these elected officials.
Yeah, these people don't really have a spine. They don't really have a stance. They were telling us
That's
what we
right.
wanted to hear so we can vote for them. Now they're trying to, mince words
Yeah.
and do that stuff. Donald Trump included, and Carrie Lake. I'll call them out for who they are. I don't like what they had to say, and I think that they're backtracking. I get it. They're politicians. They want to get elected. But at the end of the day, you have to make a stand for what's right, no matter what people, they'll come around. People will figure it
That's
out.
right.
People will look at the economy
Yeah.
and say, I'd rather vote on what's going on in the economy than some social issue when it comes to abortion. I think it's crazy to see people backing down and saying, oh, I was a mother and I had a choice. And that's just, to me, you're being fake. It's either
Mm-hmm.
wrong or it's acceptable. You're
That's right.
either killing a child or you're not. And I often say this when I get it, some liberals, they get upset with me, and I say, well, what if we could determine if the baby was going to be homosexual or trans in the womb, in utero? Okay. And if we could, is it okay that if a person says, I don't want a trans kid or I don't want a gay kid, I want to have an abortion? Are you cool with that? And then they flip out and they cry
They
and
do.
they act like it's like you guys have to be consistent with what you're actually saying you believe. Is it a life or is it not a life? Viability is not an excuse because a kid isn't really viable even when they're born. I have 2 children. They will die if my wife wouldn't feed them every day and we weren't sheltering them or keeping blankets on them, making sure their body temperature
That's
is
right.
normal. All of those things. So I don't know why we're at this point in this country, but I do think that we
Mm.
should call out politicians who are fickle on the topic and claiming to be conservative.
Absolutely. I think that we've started to see this backtracking, and I've even noticed even some of my pro-life friends are like giving passes to some of these politicians because they want to win in November, which I want to win in November too. Lives are literally on the line when you think of the Biden administration, the $700 million that Planned Parenthood gets every year. Now they're committing a record number of abortions, 392,000 abortions. The more taxpayer funds they get, the more babies they kill, and the fewer quote good services they provide. There's a direct correlation there. And so our votes have consequences. So of course we want to see conservative leaders win, but at the expense of having conservative leaders being pro-choice, what are we actually voting for at that point is the question.
Yeah, I think that this is where I try to look at the totality of circumstances. When I see
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump saying what he said, I disagree with it wholeheartedly. I don't like the approach. I would never say that if I was a politician, but will I not vote for
Yeah.
Donald Trump? I mean, I'm voting for Donald Trump.
The
Carrie
choice
Lake,
is very clear.
it's very clear because what I think also is that he's
Yeah.
not really confident in his own stance anyway. I think he's just
Yeah.
saying whatever he needs to say to get elected. It does kind of hurt our messaging a little bit, but once he get into
Mm.
office and the rubber meets the road, we'll see how
Yeah.
he actually participates
Yeah.
when he's the president. Same thing with Carrie Lake in Arizona. It's like, I'm not going to vote for one of these Democrats because they're far more extreme. I mean, Carrie Lake is wishy washy on it, and she kind of lukewarm and saying whatever she think needs to be said. But these people are not just lukewarm; they
That's
are
right.
radical devils, and so they're much worse than our Republican candidates. But I do think that
Mm.
we should hold them accountable to what they say. Even if it's an election, and when they get elected, we should hold their feet to the fire and say, you need to
That's right.
do something about this. Arizona was phenomenal for Arizona to say abortion is completely outlawed unless it's for
Mm.
the life of the mother. And I think that's our starting point. And then after that, we
Yeah.
can have a negotiation about what people want to do. But I think that we should maintain that starting point. It wasn't anything wrong with it. It wasn't overly harsh. It's not that hard
Mm.
for women to make a decision. In a heartbeat bill, which we've heard people talk about before, you got 6 weeks. It's not like women get pregnant because they walk down the street and slipped on a crack in the road, or they slip on a banana peel and somehow they get pregnant, or God is just rolling dice every now and again, and if it hit eights, sometime a random woman gets pregnant. Like, you knew you were doing the thing. And so the logical conclusion of you doing the thing without birth control and all these other measures, because we know you have to be avoiding a lot of things to end up getting pregnant on like a one-time thing. And so you did the dirty. It's very simple for you to say, okay, you got 6 weeks. That's
Yeah.
a month and a half. It should not take a woman that long. And people are still crying about the heartbeat bill as if it's too harsh. That's insane to me.
Yeah, it was interesting because listening to you talk about, you're still going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm right there with you. You have, and I know when you were talking, my pro-life Democrat friends were probably like in their head going or shouting at their, phone, Brandon, this is why the GOP continues to betray pro-lifers because, they're not, some of these candidates aren't great and you're still saying you're going to vote for them. And I get that view. I do. But the reality is, what we're voting for isn't the like implementation of a tax policy.
Yeah.
Like who we vote for in November will literally determine if tens of thousands of human beings are killed or are allowed to live.
Right.
And I think that it hits home differently despite the disagreements we have with the Kerry Lakes or the stupid things that Donald Trump may say. We have hope that if elected, at the minimum, Kerry Lake would vote to defund Planned Parenthood. Because she says abortion's not federal, so therefore stop making federal taxpayer dollars pay for it. She would at least be a vote for conservative Supreme Court and federal judges. Donald Trump says it's a state issue. Okay, fine. Then be with us and lead the charge to defund a bar Planned Parenthood. There are certain things I can work with, even with these politicians who backslide, who are going to be 100% better than the alternative in the Democratic Party who wants the abortion like mega act to pass, the Women's Health Empowerment Act, which would force abortion on demand in all 9 months of pregnancy for whatever reason with taxpayer funds, no conscience rights. They've already passed it twice out of the House. The Senate is the only thing holding that sucker back. And it'll be way worse than Roe versus Wade. That's literally like the flood at the levee waiting to break through the dam.
I'm glad you said that, and I'm hoping that people will just be reasonable about it. Yes, Donald Trump made me upset when he said that. Yes, I wanted to throw Kerry Lake under the bus and never vote for her again. But I have to be reasonable, ladies and gentlemen. We only have two choices in many of these elections.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna sit out?
Yeah.
Because if you sit out and they win, they're gonna go knee deep in abortions.
Right.
And then
Yep.
when we look back, are you gonna virtue? This is what I would tell people. Are you gonna then virtue signal and say, look, I did the right thing by letting them get elected, but I did the right thing? No, you didn't. Donald Trump and Kerry Lake and some of these people are our stepping stones to more conservative Republicans. Like we need to get them in there. And then the next wave of Republicans, they can be more conservative because we have a benchmark. We can't go in many cases. We can't go. Unfortunately, we can't go from where we at now to me. People need some adjustment time, and these lukewarm politicians, I think, to a certain degree, now that they're on the ballot, they kind of give us this buffer to where by the time they're out of office, which means 6 years for Kerry if she wins the Senate, and then it'll be 4 years for Trump if he win the presidency, to set a tempo in this country. And therefore, when we go from here to here, it's not that drastic of a cultural shift. But I also would say this: if we have two Republican candidates, right, that are one is saying that they're pro-life and one is pro-choice, that's a no-brainer.
Preach.
The Republican that's pro-life is the one that we choose. But the Republican versus the Nazi maniac Democrat that's not only going to screw us on abortion, they're going to screw us on taxes, the economy, inflation. They're going to screw foreign policy. We're going to be in the wars. We're giving millions of dollars to Ukraine and Iran. I mean, not Iran, but Israel. And
well, we did give millions of dollars to Iran.
We did. Yeah. We freed
that was under Obama.
We freed up money for them to use to kill us, and then we funding the people that's fighting against them. But then we're giving aid to Gaza, who then we're fighting. They're giving aid to who fighting them, and these people are nuts. So let's compartmentalize and say, let's not give the devil public office, and let's continue to work with people and be reasonable. I'll say this too. We have to be, we can have a strong stance, but be reasonable. I will never get in protest this is me. I don't think there's nothing wrong with people protesting the thing. If I protest at Planned Parenthood, I protest at one of these places, I personally feel as if I'm going to help the woman that I tell that you should turn from eliminating your child's life. I want to help you. I can't just yell at you and go, "You're going to hell. You're the reason when America's gone," and I walk
Yeah,
away.
that's literally counterproductive if you
Right.
do that, by the way, and
I
you're listening to this.
I want people to. I want a woman to say, "Let me show you a better way. This
Yeah,
is
that's right.
wrong, and we know it's wrong,
Mhm.
but you don't even want to make this decision. How about we help you work with this organization that helps you
Mhm.
get on your
That's right.
feet and things like that, and there's organizations I work with to help young women, give them an ultrasound, all that for free, and help them, guide them through the pregnancy process, and help them make the decision at the end if they want to keep their child or give their child up for adoption.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, thankfully now we don't actually see too many of these like protesters at abortion facilities. Most abortion facilities have a 40 Days for Life presence, a Sidewalk Advocates presence, Students for Life out there promoting standingwithyou.org. I think folks have started to see, if you're yelling at women, they're going to run inside of the abortion facility.
Right.
So you do not want to be yelling at women in front of an abortion facility. That's literally counterproductive. Now, you mentioned the devil, so let's start talking about the devil a little bit. I have seen, and we were talking a little bit before this podcast began, just the tremendous uptick on college campuses of just, it used to be the argument was, you're a liar, it's a clump of cells, it's not alive, her body, her choice. Okay, those are the traditional, uninformed, biologically incorrect statements. Now, what I've seen since COVID and fully since Gen Z has kind of come onto campuses is, yep, it's alive. Yes, it's a member of our species. Is I don't care. I get to kill it. And we've just seen, people like taking our fetal models and chewing them up, some swallowing them. I had a student spokesperson. They were throwing bloody what had looked to be their painted rubber fetal models at her. So at her feet were like all of these dead children. Like it is demonic, some of the things. And then what you see and what I see on TikTok, some of these people are like, yeah, I'm gonna fake cry, I'm pregnant. Oh, and then smiling, I'm drinking wine and I'm having an abortion tomorrow. Like, have you noticed that there's just been like an uptick of like evil when it comes to abortion?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the whole process of taking a life of another person is an evil sacrificial act.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
some people maybe they don't understand that they're involved in that demonic process, but this is what they're
Yeah.
doing. They're sacrificing their youth or their children
Um,
to better their career or to operate in selfishness. And some people do know they're doing it. Like some of the girl, I saw the post that you're talking about. The girl was like, "Oh, something," and then she drinks the wine and laughs. Haha, I already have the appointment scheduled. And to be quite honest, I bet she won't show a video after. No, she will not, because
yeah.
women are not feeling like that after they see the ultrasound. And then they may
Yeah.
not have the courage once they're in there getting coerced to say, okay, I see a baby here. Like, I didn't think the baby was that big. I'm hearing a heartbeat. I'm getting emotional. I'm feeling the connection. But you feel like you can't turn back now because the boyfriend that you slept with don't even like you no more, or you don't know what he's going to think, or you got to sit down at the church. You're an embarrassment. You're a sinner.
Mm.
You're embarrassed to the world. You may not be able to go to college. Like these women are coerced into playing God in their mind. Like, you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen in your life. You can't predict that because I have this baby that somehow this XYZ is going to happen, or I'm never going to make it in life. I mean, all of these things are a reality that comes to like a crescendo,
Mm.
and they have an abortion and they go home lonely, sad, broken, in pain, regretful, and make a TikTok video about that. They will not. The same thing with the abortion pill. They send these women these pills, and some of them are
Mhm.
not telling the truth, right? Because
That's right.
you have to be certain far along in the pregnancy. They don't verify that anymore. So a woman can
Mhm.
just say, "I'm desperate right now. I'm gonna say that I'm only this amount of pregnant, so I can take this pill." Some women have other complications, maybe type 1 diabetic, or some other things that are going on and complications that they need to see a medical professional. Oh, they want to forego
Yeah.
that because they can just get it in the mail. They take these pills and they have a miscarriage, essentially, sometimes in the very place that they have to revisit every day of their lives. They live in
That's
an
right.
apartment that happened in the bathroom, and
Yeah.
they're not really telling these women what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I would wonder, would they make a TikTok video of the aftermath? And I guarantee you they
Mm.
wouldn't.
No, I mean, you're right. I was reading this Washington Post article, written by Carolyn Ketchner, not a pro-life, journalist, a couple of weeks ago, where she detailed the trauma mothers experience during these chemical abortions. Now, the article, has this, like, it was a Sunday article, so it was a longer article, has this like pro-abortion bent. But if you read the stories of the women who are getting these chemical abortion pills, first of all, it's not between a woman or a doctor anymore. The woman who was counter of me on this ABC documentary a couple weeks ago, she's like an abortionist in New York State who admitted on like national TV, her and some of her neighbors are like packaging chemical abortion pills in her basement, and they're shipping them across the nation. Like, she didn't even like blur out her face. This is how crazy New York State is. She feels like that she's not going to get, like, it's not between a woman and doctor, it's between a woman, a scared woman, and these like neighbors in New York State who are shipping abortion drugs. So, God forbid she has a medical complication like an ectopic pregnancy or something that could actually kill her, that she doesn't even know when she's ingesting these pills. But the story from Caroline, the article, I mean, it was shocking. Like, the one girl who says she doesn't regret abortion admitted that the baby, when the baby came out, because she's told to either get on the toilet or get in the bathtub, the baby was too big to be flushed down the toilet.
Oh
And so
my
she had to put
God.
her hand in the toilet bowl, scoop up her baby, and then figure out how to get rid of the baby. I mean, it was, these are women who, like, in the past, when you think about post-abortion syndrome, there were women who like had these surgical abortions, and then like it hit them when they were older and married and going in for the ultrasound of their child that they wanted. Oh my gosh, what did I do? 10, 5, 15 years ago. Now you have girls who are having these abortions and then immediately are seeing the consequences of their decision. In some case, having to scoop them up out of the toilet and then figure out what to do with their bodies.
That is so horrifying. I can't imagine. And you know what? Like, if you saw a video of that, it it would not make you feel the same as if you're physically present and
Yep.
engaging in that. The smell, the look, the warmth of a fetal baby that's in a toilet. Like, you got to find where to dispose of it. And all of these nightmares and dreams and post traumatic
Yeah.
stress. And you got to think too, like, when women have, and I don't know if this is true. I have to look this up, but it makes me think about it. At least when my wife had our child, she had post traumatic stress
Wow.
from, postpartum stress,
Yep.
and she had a bunch of other complicated things that were going on. And I wonder, when these women are forced to give birth, do they have some of those same side effects, because the body is actually in some cases giving birth?
Yeah.
And I just wonder, are women experiencing that and they don't get any help or guidance? They just think that,
Yeah.
I can't say nothing now because I was so much more of an
Yeah.
advocate of it. I can't tell anybody I'm going crazy. I'm feeling dread and regret. I'm suicidal. And the
Yep.
biggest thing that I think about all
That's
the
why I
time,
actually think they're so angry on campus, Brandon,
because
because
they've had one.
they've had one. And so,
Yeah.
and they've seen the aftermath sometimes, like physically in their bathtub or in their toilet bowl. And so, for anyone to be coming out to their campus to say abortion is more immoral or wrong or should be
Yeah.
abolished, is that signal to them that they did something wrong. And so it's like this triggering act that re-traumatize them, because they're literally walking wounded and
Yeah.
post-abortive and no one knows.
100%. And the same thing with conservatives. I noticed this and I could see it in their eyes. And that's why every time I mention this at a stage or an event, I always couple it with, God can forgive you. Don't walk
Mm-hmm.
around with this burden on you.
Yeah.
Repent, tell God you're sorry for doing it. Don't do it again, but let God heal
Yeah.
you. Because when I'm at these events, I can see people's faces, right? I'm looking around the crowd and I'm looking at the women, and I'm looking at the men, and they may not think I can see them, but like sometimes when I'm
You
glancing,
can.
I catch it. I catch the emotion is different, right? You got people that's like, and then you got a person that's like this, and I see them and I feel them, because I have
Yeah.
made mistakes in my life. I'm not a woman. I can't have an abortion, but I have made mistakes in my life that I dread. And when I went to the
Mm.
church and I heard the gospel of Jesus Christ and I heard the truth, like, I felt some type of way, like I felt a little shame. but there's also a redemptive message there too, and that's what I try to do when I talk about these things.
Yeah.
Of course, some people need the spanking, right? You know, some of them girls on campus, they just crazy and they bludgeon you and they want to throw stuff and cuss at you and call you names and all this stuff. And sometimes they need a spanking verbal spanking when it comes to that. But some women need to be hugged and loved
Yeah.
and
That's
told
right.
that it's going to be
That's right.
okay. You're not the sum of a mistake that you made. You
Yeah.
have the ability, you know, by the grace of God, to go on and be fruitful and have children in the future. And then make sure you go back and encourage other young women not to go through what you went through.
Hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for referring to what I do as a verbal spanking.
Yeah. Because they need it. I mean, some of them get it. They cry too.
Oh
I
yeah.
seen them on the video. They get
Yeah.
all crazy. Like it's like the
They're
devil coming
crazy.
out of them. You just say something very simple, like viability, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
they get in the conundrum
Yeah.
because you talk about how viability. They go, well, the baby isn't viable to this point. It's like, well, with modern technology, babies are more viable now, or you know, they can
Yeah.
survive out of the womb now more so than they did then. Is the baby somehow less or more valuable now because we have new technology? And then they brains go because
Change the
they never
subject.
thought about it.
Yeah. No, you can see it. And you're right, because like when you're having these conversations, you see it in people's eyes, and even the facial expressions they may try to hide. I always joke, like when I'm on campuses, I wish I could like, animate. I started wearing these, actually. These are those meta glasses. They'll probably give me brain cancer, but where I can film, because at some point I'm trying to get good enough where not only is the camera on me and them, but I want to like show their faces when I'm talking, because you can almost animate the like light bulb going off, or the very real spiritual battle that's playing out in their head, and they're wrestling with past decisions versus this new information. I think one of the thoughts I was thinking when you were talking about you at these audiences talking, and always offering that grace and redemption is there available for you. Have you ever had like posts aboard, because you're a guy and you're going to get different audience reactions than I am? Like, do you ever have posts aboard of men coming up to you, sharing their stories? I often get the women, the post aboard of mothers who come up and will tell me their story. Do you have men that ever come up to you and share their abortion stories?
I haven't because I don't talk too much about it. It's mostly
Mm,
you know, within the confines of a speech. But I have had men message me, and I have had
mm,
men mention it to me, and it's not a lot because I think men, you know, in some cases, men may not even know. You
yeah.
know, I was looking at this video. You probably seen it going viral online. It was actually a movie, I think, so it wasn't real life. But it was this girl, and the guy was cuddling her, and she go, "Oh, I'm sorry, some things I can't do because I just had an abortion." And he was like, "Well, what do you mean you had abortion?" Like, and she's like, "Yeah, I had an
Oh
abortion.
yeah.
Like, I didn't tell you." And he's like, "You aborted my kid?" And he was like, "How many have you had?" And she was like, "It's personal." And he's like, well, I have had none, and you're the first woman I've gotten pregnant. You know, she was very dismissive, and it's a viral
Yeah.
clip in a movie.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
on
would argue,
Girls. It was at HBO. It
yeah,
was that HBO terrible show, The Girls.
how crazy that was. But I think some men may not even know. I mean,
Yeah.
because I would argue, and this is the thing with men too, is that I teach young men too. I don't just talk to women about this because men shouldn't be laying around with women they don't plan to marry, and then you get caught in this conundrum. But I think that some men probably don't know, and they feel
Yeah.
shame
Yeah.
too because they are the ones coercing these women
Yeah.
in many cases, either
Yeah.
vicariously through their actions or they're just directly saying, "I don't want the kid." Fresh and Fit or Fresh and Fraud, whatever their names is. I don't know if you've been following that story. They're supposed to be these red pill guru guys,
No, no
and
clue.
they go. If you ever watch them, you would throw up in your mouth every time you hear them talk how poorly they talk about women and how many women they have sex with and all this so crazy stuff. And they're trying to mentor young men, which is horrible. But one of them got caught on a recorded phone call with a girl. It was his voice and it was the girl because someone interviewed and verified it. So I throw allegedly on there because I don't want to get sued by somebody, but the recording is there where he's encouraging and coercing her to have an abortion. He's
I
telling
did
her,
see this. I didn't know how
that's
that
it.
guy was popular, but okay.
Yeah, so they on some podcast and they just
Okay.
it's really the fallout and the overcorrection of young men feeling betrayed by women and the modern woman. But they go
Hmm.
so far to like bash women and call them all what's, and that they only good for sex, and they try to tell young men all this stuff, and then what they doing on the back end, they getting women pregnant and begging them to have abortions multiple times, and it's a
So they
shame.
don't have to be men and take
They don't
responsibility.
have to be, and this is why I don't like the abortion laws that says two things. One, it's her body, her choice, which is really not, because it's her body, her choice, and everybody else's responsibility. Because once she have the baby, the government is going to pay for it if she don't have the money, or baby daddy's going to be paying child support forever. And so, at least until the kid is 18, depending on the state. But I don't believe in that, because then that absolves a man, because it gives men
Yep,
more of a thing to say. I'm gonna walk away from you. You better not have that baby, because you ain't gonna have me around, and he don't have to take care of his responsibilities.
That's right.
Men should be forced to take care of the responsibility for the children that they create, and abortion gives them a way out. Men should be thoughtful about who they having sex with. Why did Brandon Tatum say this? Because I had a kid in college out of wedlock. And I had a whole story, and I try not to say it publicly because I don't want to embarrass the other party. But I had a kid out of wedlock when I was in college, and yeah, it was on the table. Not for me. It was on the table for the other person. And it was something that was so hard for me to go through. And I'll tell the story at another time, or maybe off camera, I'll tell you what happened. But it was devastating for me. And thank God that life was chosen, because now my boy is 13 years old. And he's flourishing. That was the same boy that was on that ultrasound. It's the same baby. It's my same son. And for a man to not have control over that, it's very disheartening. And it's terrible that people don't think about us. It's like, it's my child too.
Right.
And what if I want the
No,
child?
you're completely emasculating this whole decision, Brandon. And that's what's been happening since 1973. I just met a man at the Florida International University. I recorded a podcast with him as well, because he drove 4 hours to meet me. He wasn't a student, to share with me how his daughter had just been killed in a late term abortion. And he had no say. He didn't know. He had gone away for the weekend with his family. His girlfriend chose the abortion. She now regrets it. She got a free abortion because the abortion facility got money for her dead child to donate her dead child's body to research. So there's no body to bury of the child. I mean, he came up to me and just started bawling. Actually, he came up barreling up to me. My bodyguard got really nervous because he was running at a high velocity, and he got there and he just like broke down in front of me. This is a 27-year-old tall guy, 6 foot whatever, built, and just bawling on a street corner because he had to tell me what happened, and he didn't understand how he had no rights in this situation at all.
Yeah, it hurts, and you can't. It's like, if anybody have ever experienced a death in the family, you have this moment where you say, "Wow, it's final. I can never go back. I'm never gonna get. No matter how much I cry, no matter how much I pray, this person is never coming back. It's nothing I can do. I can't wish it. I can't pray it. There's no magic wand. And the same thing happens when you abort your child, because when you regret it, it's too late. Or when a man is in a situation where the woman has done it and he can't control it, he got to live with that hurt that he can never fix. And that's not a life that people want to live. And I wish that our society would focus on those things. The women activists that claim that they're pro-choice, quote unquote, if they really loved women, they would empower women. Not only in the sense of saying, you don't want to go down this path, take care of your child, let's rally together as women and help you raise this child, or whatever the resources that you have. And then also, they should be encouraging young women to not be so liberal with their sex life. Teach young women to say, hey, don't give your love to men that are not committed to you, that do not love you enough to marry you and take care of you and take care of the kids and nurture your emotions. And when you have the baby, can rub your feet and make sure you make it through this difficult time of postpartum. And don't give your love to a man that's not committed to that, because it leaves you broken and hurt. Why don't women love other women enough to encourage them to go down the path that would be most conducive for them?
Mm, that's right. That's a great question. A very great question. All right, so let's move into the final segment of the show here, Brandon. I have some audience questions. We're making this podcast audience participation. So I have two questions that we got on social media from some of our Kristan Hawkins show followers, and I'm going to ask you your answers. So be prepared.
Uh-oh.
There's only two. They're pretty easy. I'll start with the easiest one. Hayden on Instagram asked, "How do I become more outspoken as a pro-life man?"
Hey, you just got to start by opening your mouth and giving your opinion. That's how it works. Like whether it's on social media, any opportunity you have to stand up, you have to start by taking the first step of saying something. And I would say this: when you start out, don't start out attacking people. Don't start
Mm,
out with this meanness and letting your emotions get the best of you. Start out with love and compassion. And
mm,
you got to take the first step, though. You can't just jump out and be a viral sensation and just doing this. You got to methodically over time find out where are opportunities for me to have a voice, and let me start
mhm,
there. Even if it's with family members, at a cookout and the subject comes up, don't be
mm,
afraid to give your opinion on that, and then it'll encourage you to be bolder and bolder to talk to strangers, and from strangers to social media, from social media to potentially being a world-renowned speaker on the topic. It could go there, but you have to start with step one, and that's just when you have an opportunity to say something,
mm.
do it with love.
Yeah, and I would definitely like to echo what you said there, because I think, just being a pro-life quote leader, and we have the National Pro-Life Summit every year. I have found in the speaker evaluations of all these pro-life folks that we come and speaking from a sold out group of students and adults every January, that men have a harder time not coming across as angry. I guess I'm an exception because I come across angry. Everyone's scared of me. But it's really interesting. I will have two pro-life speakers that are pro-life apologists, meaning they debate with logic, facts, science. And the female apologist, the ratings were like, amazing, amazing, awesome. And even though this female gave some like hard hitting truth, the man will get a lower ranking, and it's like he came across so angry and mean. And so I think it's something for you, Hayden, and anyone else tuning in who's a pro-life man. We need you. But I think what Brandon said is exactly right on, of making sure. And there's like a pro-life podcast or speaker right now that I'm thinking of. You don't come across as too angry. Um, because I think it just turns people off, and it works for me, but I think it works for me because I'm a woman, and so
Yeah,
I get some extra advantage. But I think if a man would go to campuses and say what I say, it'd probably be come across a lot differently. And I'm sorry, it's
one
not fair, but
One
that's
hundred
the way it
percent.
is.
That's the way anything is. If a woman
Yeah.
is critiquing a man about being a man, men feel some type of way about that. Like, well, wait a minute, they women come across as being combative towards men and being a man hater, and they could say the same
Yep.
thing a
That's right.
man says. Same thing about faith. If a
Yeah.
Christian leader critiques another
Yep.
Christian and say you should be living by this and you should stand up for a standard and whatever, if a Muslim says that about a Christian, same thing with your family members. I could talk about my mama all day long. You talk about my mama, then we're gonna have a problem. And so
Yep.
you
That's
have
right.
to understand when communicating, you have to understand your audience and you have to be tactical. You can't
Yep.
always
That's
say
right.
exactly what you feel because you're dealing with a sensitive, you could be dealing with sensitive people. And also you
Yep.
have to change what you're saying at different places. If you're at a rally talking to men about abortion, that's different than talking to women. If you're at
That's right.
if you're at a pro-life event where love and compassion is necessary in this topic, you have to you have to say the love and compassion side. It's a
Yep.
tactic
That's
to
right.
all of this, and it doesn't mean you're not being honest, but you have to understand, do I want to deliver a message to the people effectively, and this is what I need to do. Like
That's
children,
exactly right.
you get down on their level. When they talk to us, you
Yep.
don't look down at the kid. You get on their level and you communicate with them face to face so they don't feel intimidated. That doesn't mean you don't say the same thing. That just means that you're using an intention and tactics to actually communicate your point.
Yeah, that's right. I was at a pregnancy center gala not long ago, and someone came up to me. He's like, "I can't wait for your pro life smackdowns tonight," and I was like, are there going to be pro-choice people yelling at me? I don't think so. We're talking today about standing with you and how to support women so no woman ever chooses abortion. And so at the end, they're like, wow, that was like a nicer Kristan than I thought. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually a pretty nice person. It's just you see clips of people screaming at me after they've been screaming at me for like 15 minutes on social media because those are the only clips that go viral. So I think you're absolutely right. Know your audience and think tactically and strategically about what you're saying and who you're speaking to. All right, next question, last question. This is harder. Shania on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter X. Here's interesting. She says a statement. She wants you to know how to refute it. Saying Planned Parenthood is founded on eugenics is like saying America was founded on slavery. How do you refute that?
I think it's very simple because you have to look at the participation in action today. So you say America was founded on, it really wasn't, because American slavery was only in the South. The North, black people were free. And even in the South, there was free people in the South, and all slavery wasn't the same. So, but if you want to use that example and say that it was, look at how we participate now. There's so many laws and so much advocacy for black people in America.
Yeah.
Black people are billionaires. So we could say that if you believe they started that way, we definitely are not that today. Look at Planned Parenthood. They started as a eugenics racist organization that eliminated the lives of minorities and the undesirable people. Now, fast forward to today, where are the Planned Parenthoods located? In inner cities of people in poverty that are considered to be the lower income undesirables. If you look at the disproportionality of abortions, it's majority in poor areas, majority with minority people of color. So the same eugenic theology that started with Planned Parenthood is activated today, and you can see the numbers of what their fruits are. And so when you compare the two, the best way to look at it is that what are they doing today, and is the correlation consistent as their founding? And the answer is, in Planned Parenthood's case, 100% consistent.
That's the perfect answer. Mic drop. Awesome. I'm so glad I'm ending the podcast on that note. Brandon, you did an excellent job answering that question, because even I was like, ooh, I don't know how I'm going to respond to this. That is all the time we have today. But before I wrap up, Brandon, where can they find your show on YouTube and all the social media places?
So I made it simple. If you put in the Officer Tatum in a search engine, whether it's Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever one you use, you'll find everything that I do. And that's the easiest way to find me. And Kristan, thank you so much for having me on.
The Officer Tatum. Well, thanks for giving us your time today. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in to listen. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where I'm going to be taking your questions for future episodes. And your question might even be asked of an upcoming guest. All links are in the show notes. See you next week.